The 5 Jock males were born into the Jock Pride, a powerful lion pride that roamed the Kruger National Park. From their earliest days, they lived under the protection of their strong fathers, who ruled with dominance and experience. The cubs grew up in a world filled with lessons in survival, hunting, and the bonds of brotherhood. They played in the golden grass, learning the ways of the wild, under the watchful eyes of their mothers. As they grew, the pride thrived. The Jiu. Jock's fathers defended their territory fiercely, ensuring their offspring had food and security. The young males watched their fathers fight off challengers, cementing their reputation as kings of their land. They admired the power their fathers held, dreaming of the day they would be strong enough to claim a kingdom of their own. But the savannah was unforgiving. The balance of power was always shifting, and as the 5 Jocks reached adolescence, an ominous change loomed on the horizon. The arrival of the 4 Mlambane males shattered the peace the young lions had known. The Mlambane coalition was strong, ruthless, and determined to claim the Jock Pride's territory as their own. Their attack was swift and brutal, forcing the Jock's fathers into a desperate battle. Roars echoed through the night as claws clashed and blood stained the earth. One by one, the ruling males fell. Some perished in the fight, while others fled defeated. The 5 Jock brothers, still too young to challenge the invaders, watched as their home was taken from them. The pride's lionesses submitted to the new rulers, and the cubs that were not sired by the Mlambane males faced a grim fate. The brothers had 2 choices: stay and risk being killed, or flee into the unknown. With no other option, they left behind everything they knew and ventured into exile, stepping into a world of uncertainty and danger. As the 5 young Jocks wandered into exile, fear and doubt gnawed at them. They had never lived without the protection of their pride, and the vast wilderness was filled with dangers. Each night they heard the distant roars of dominant males, a constant reminder that they had no place to call their own. Hunger became their greatest enemy. Without the experience to hunt large prey, they relied on scavenging, stealing scraps from hyenas and other predators. The brothers grew thin, their golden coats dulled by hardship. At times, the thought of returning home crossed their minds. Perhaps if they submitted to the Mlambane males, they could survive within the pride. But deep down, they knew there was no going back. They were no longer cubs, and the only way forward was to become strong enough to claim their own territory one day. In their struggle to survive, the 5 Jocks found an unlikely source of guidance, one of their old fathers, who had also been exiled. Though weakened and alone, he still carried the wisdom of a seasoned warrior. Hello guys, if you like our stories and haven't subscribed yet, support our work and subscribe to the channel to help us. The old male stayed with them, teaching them the skills they needed to thrive. He showed them how to track prey, how to work together in coordinated hunts, and how to avoid confrontations they could not win. He instilled in them the importance of patience, endurance, and brotherhood. For a time, the young males found a sense of stability under his guidance, but the old lion was not immortal. One day, he did not rise to join them in the hunt. His time had come, and the brothers were left to face the wild on their own once again. Yet they were no longer the same helpless exiles. They had learned the lessons of survival. Now, they were ready to take their first step toward reclaiming power. With their mentor gone, the 5 Jocks embraced their new reality as nomads. No longer cubs, they had grown into strong young males. Their muscles hardened by struggle and their minds sharpened by experience. They moved together as a unit, hunting efficiently and avoiding stronger coalitions. As time passed, they tested their strength against weaker opponents. They chased lone males from watering holes, asserted dominance over scavengers, and even challenged small prides for food. Each battle reinforced their bond and proved they were no longer victims of exile. Then the moment arrived. They came across a stretch of land near the S21 and H3, where the resident males were aging and vulnerable. The Jocks had learned enough to recognize weakness, and they knew this was their opportunity. They launched their first takeover, attacking with the precision of seasoned warriors. The old pride males, unable to match their speed and aggression, were forced to flee. For the first time, the Jocks were no longer nomads. They were rulers. With their newfound power, the Jocks established themselves as the dominant males of the Quagapan pride and later the Nwatamri pride. They mated with the lionesses, ensuring their bloodline would continue. Their roars echoed across the savannah, a warning to any challengers. But their reign was not without conflict. Other coalitions eyed their growing strength, waiting for a chance to strike. Lone males tested their defenses, and rival prides challenged their dominance. The Jocks fought many battles, proving time and time again that they were a force to be feared. Despite their victories, the brothers knew they could not grow complacent. To secure their future, they needed to expand. And so they set their sights on new territory, one controlled by a formidable enemy, the three Lubia males. They were about to face their greatest test yet. The Jock males had established themselves as dominant rulers, but they knew their kingdom was not yet complete. Their ambitions stretched beyond the S21 and H3 toward a territory ruled by the three Lubia males. This region was rich in prey, with strong lionesses and prime watering holes. However, taking it would not be easy. The Lubia males were experienced fighters who had ruled for years. The Jocks spent weeks testing the borders, leaving scent marks and roaring in the night to provoke a response. The Lubia males answered with their own roars, signaling their readiness to defend their land. The tension between the two coalitions grew, and a confrontation was inevitable. The Jocks prepared for war. Unlike their past battles, this would be a direct fight against equally strong opponents. If they failed, they could lose everything. But hesitation was not an option. The savannah belonged to those who were bold enough to take it. The battle erupted under the scorching African sun. The five Jocks clashed with the three Lubia males in a brutal display of power. Roars and snarls filled the air as claws slashed through flesh and fangs tore into muscle. Despite their experience, the Lubia males were outnumbered. The Jocks fought as a unit, using their numerical advantage to overwhelm their opponents. One by one, the defenders fell, two were killed, and the last survivor fled, defeated. The victory was absolute. The Jocks had conquered new territory, expanding their domain to an estimated 10 to 20 kilometers. The lionesses of the Lubia pride submitted to their new rulers, and with them came new cubs, ensuring the Jocks' lineage would continue. Standing over their fallen enemies, the five Jocks had reached their peak. They were no longer just survivors of exile, they were kings of the Kruger. With the Lubia males defeated, the Jocks ruled a vast and powerful empire. Their territory stretched across prime hunting grounds, and their prides flourished under their dominance. The brothers had achieved what few coalitions ever could. They had built a legacy that seemed unshakable. For years, they lived as undisputed kings. Their roars echoed through the savannah, a constant reminder of their authority. They sired cubs who carried their strong genes, ensuring their bloodline would continue. The Jocks had become legends in their own time, feared by rivals and respected by all who shared their land. But time is relentless. As the years passed, their golden coats became scarred, their movements slower. New coalitions began to appear on the edges of their domain, young and hungry for power. The brothers knew that their greatest battle had already been fought, but their greatest challenge was yet to come. Age crept upon the Jocks, and the vast territory they had conquered now became a burden. With their strength fading, they could no longer patrol it as they once had. Their once daily roars became less frequent, and their enemies took notice. Young males tested their rule, pushing into their borders, seeking to claim a piece of the Jocks' land. Bit by bit, the brothers lost control. Some vanished, perhaps fallen in battle or driven away by stronger rivals. Reports of them became scarcer, their presence fading into the shadows of the past. One by one, the Jocks disappeared, until only one remained. The last of the five kings, once a mighty warrior, now roamed alone. His steps were slow, his ribs visible beneath his worn coat, but his spirit remained unbroken. He walked the land. He had ruled, retracing the path of his own legend. He was the last reminder of a dynasty that had once ruled with iron paws. The last surviving Jock Male moved slowly through the land he had once ruled with his brothers. His body, once powerful and muscular, now carried the weight of age and countless battles. His golden coat, once sleek and imposing, had dulled, and his ribs were visible beneath his skin. Scars lined his body, each one a reminder of a fight won, a territory defended, a rival defeated. For years he had stood at the top of the hierarchy, an undisputed king of the Kruger. His coalition had conquered vast lands, defeated mighty opponents, and ensured the continuation of their bloodline. The Jocks had built an empire unlike any other, ruling over multiple prides and securing a vast 10 to 20-kilometer stretch of land. But time was the only enemy they could never truly defeat. As his strength faded, so too did his dominance. Younger and stronger males had begun testing the borders of the Jock kingdom. They were ambitious, filled with the same hunger for power that had once driven him and his brothers. At first, he and the remaining Jocks had fought back, refusing to surrender their rule. But with each battle, the toll became greater. One by one, his brothers disappeared. Some lost to fatal encounters with rival males, others simply vanishing into the wilderness, never to be seen again. At first, the old lion still had his pride. The lionesses that had once submitted to him continued to follow, recognizing his presence as that of a king. But lions live by the laws of strength, and as the months passed, the lionesses began to drift toward younger, more virile males who could offer them better protection and stronger offspring. Now, he was alone. No longer a ruler, no longer a pride male, just a shadow of the king he had once been. But even in his old age, the last, Jock did not submit. He still walked his land, moving slowly but with purpose. His scent marks had faded. His roar had lost its power, but he continued to patrol, perhaps out of instinct, perhaps out of defiance. Even as he weakened, he would not let himself be forgotten. Sightings of him became rare. Travelers and rangers, who had once marveled at the dominance of the Jock males, now only caught fleeting glimpses of a lone, battered figure moving through the dry grass. He avoided direct confrontations, knowing that he could no longer withstand a fight against younger coalitions. He had seen it happen before, old kings refusing to surrender, only to be torn apart by those eager to take their place. The cycle, Kiev power in the wild, had caught up to him. The mighty kings of yesterday were the exiled wanderers of today, but even in exile, he remained a symbol of resilience. Then, in 2020, he was seen one final time, a lone figure, walking the land he had once ruled, his movements slow, his breath heavy. His eyes, once filled with fire, now held the wisdom of a lion who had seen it all. The rise and fall of empires, the fleeting nature of dominance, the unbreakable bond of brotherhood. No one knows what became of him after that sighting. Perhaps he found a quiet place to rest, far from the eyes of those who would seek to challenge him. Perhaps he fought one last battle, refusing to surrender until his final breath. Or perhaps he simply faded into the vast wilderness of Kruger, becoming part of the land that had shaped him. One thing was certain, the reign of the Jocks had ended. But even in death, their story was far from over. Their legacy had already begun to take shape in the form of their sons, young males who carried the same powerful genes that had made the Jocks legendary. Some had already been seen in different areas, showing the strength and resilience of their fathers. They were young now, but one day they too would rise, just as the Jocks had done years before. Though time had claimed the last Jock male, his bloodline would continue. His sons would grow, form their own coalitions, and carve their own paths in the wild. The cycle would begin again. And so, though he was gone, the legend of the Jock males would never truly die. The lion who had once ruled with iron paws had left behind something greater than territory. He had left behind a legacy. Though the Jock males were no longer a visible presence in the Kruger National Park, their legacy lived on in the bloodlines they had left behind. The land they had once ruled, now divided and claimed by newer coalitions, continued to bear their mark. Even after the last of the Jocks disappeared, their influence continued to shape the future of the wild. The sons of the Jocks, born from the prides they had once conquered, began to emerge as young males in their own right. They carried with them the powerful genes of their fathers, strong, resilient, and built to rule. These young lions, some of them only recently reaching maturity, started to carve their own paths, growing into the fierce and majestic animals their fathers had been. The savannah had a way of passing down power, and the Jock legacy was no exception. These sons, whether in the form of lone males or budding coalitions, were destined to rise and challenge the dominant prides in the region. They inherited not just the physical strength and cunning of their fathers, but also their leadership abilities and the unspoken wisdom that came with the trials of the Kruger. In different parts of the park, sightings of the young Jock males began to surface. Rangers reported seeing a group of strong lions roaming the areas near the old Jock territories, displaying the same characteristics that had made the original coalition so formidable: confidence, power, and the unmistakable scent of their ancestors. Some were seen near the S21 and H3, territories that had once been at the heart of the Jock's empire. Others were spotted in the Quaggapan Pride's former domain, showing signs of a growing coalition, while these young males were still far from achieving the same dominance their fathers had enjoyed. Their presence was a clear indication that the Jock bloodline had not been extinguished. The savannah was now witnessing the birth of the next generation of kings. These sons would be the ones to continue the cycle of power, moving through the land with the same strength and pride that had marked their fathers' reigns. The Jock legacy wasn't merely about the territory they had once ruled or the battles they had fought. It was about the enduring nature of their spirit and their ability to leave behind something greater than themselves. It was about family, brotherhood, and the unyielding drive to survive and thrive no matter the odds. These were the values they had passed on to their sons, values that would guide the next generation of lions as they sought to build their own empires. For the Jocks, the greatest achievement was not in ruling vast lands for a time, but in ensuring that their lineage would live on. Their blood would continue to flow through the veins of the lions who came after them, ensuring that their legacy would not be forgotten. In this sense, the Jocks had succeeded in ways that surpassed their immediate reign. They had created a dynasty, a bloodline that would continue to shape the future of the Kruger National Park for years to come. In some ways, the last Jock male's journey mirrored that of the Lion Kings who had come before him. He had once been a fierce warrior, the ruler of a vast territory, the undisputed king of his domain. As his age began to take its toll, he had slowly faded into the shadows, but not without leaving behind something far more important than a kingdom. He had left behind the promise of a future. His sons, now maturing into formidable young males, would one day rise to fill the void left by their fathers. The Kruger would always bear the mark of the Jocks. Even if the lions who had once ruled it were gone, their influence could still be felt in the roars of the young males who roamed the land, in the scent marks they left behind, in the bloodlines they had created. The Jocks may have vanished from the savannah, but their story was far from over. It had simply entered a new chapter, one that would be written by their sons, who would carry the weight of their legacy with pride. And so, the cycle continued. The sons of the Jocks would rise just as the Jocks had once done. They would carve their own path through the savannah, face their own challenges, and battle their own rivals. But no matter where their journeys took them, they would always carry the spirit of their fathers, the iron paws of the Jock males within them. Their legacy would continue, echoing through the wild, forever part of the land they had once ruled, and in the hearts of the lions who followed in their footsteps. The Jock males had passed the torch, and the future of the Kruger belonged to their sons. Hello guys, if you like our stories and haven't subscribed yet, support our work and subscribe to the channel to help us.